welcome to another episode of Success Today with Jack Canfield. I am your host, Jack Canfield, and I'm here with a wonderful author named Kay Harris, who's written a book called What Love Can't Fix, and we're going to talk about that. And I think you'll find this very interesting. So welcome, Kay.
Well, thank you.
Glad to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So you've written this book. Give us a little background that led up to you writing this book.
Okay, What Love Can't Fix is about how I navigated the storm of my husband's mental illness. And it's all about what I went through and what I learned from that experience. It's a memoir, not a self-help book, it's a memoir. So I'm hoping it will resonate with so many people out there who are caregivers, for people who are going through crisis, whether it's mental illness, dementia, whatever it is. I hope it will sort of be a beacon of resilience for them to get through that by learning the lessons I learned.
So I'm just curious, when did you first realize that your husband had a mental illness and you had to be learning how to deal with that?
It was about 12 years into our marriage that I was blindsided by that.
So let's talk about the mental illness that he had.
Sure.
There's a wide spectrum of things.
Sure. He had what was diagnosed as depression, multiple episodes over a 17-year period. And eventually it kind of morphed into hypomania, which was actually caused mostly by the medications he was taking.
What does that mean, hypomania?
So it's a mild form of manic behavior that's usually brought on and then transitions quickly into depression. That was another surprise when he had that. It's a completely different behavior from depression. And then he also had heart disease that came into the picture as well. So we had quite a few battles going on for him and for me as his wife and the mother of 3 kids.
And how old were you when this first started?
I would have been about 32. He would have been about 36.
And you had children at the time?
3 children, absolutely.
Yeah. Was it something you became aware of slowly, or was it all of a sudden one day you went, oh my God?
It was blindsided because actually I grew up in St. Pete, Florida as a dreamer. Walt Disney had this dream, this vision to build this wonderful playland in Florida, swampland in Central Florida. Those are the days of dreamers. And his dream, even though he didn't live to see it, Magic Kingdom and Disney World, he lit a spark in me to become a dreamer one day. And I wanted to be an author. That's all I wanted to be. I was a baby boomer and I did not want to take care of the family like my mother. I wanted to take care of business like my father. Well, fast forward about 12 years. I had a wonderful husband, 2 little girls that were beautiful, a new home, a great job in technology of all things, and things were coming together. I could finally sit down and write that book that had been inside of me. And it was actually a hot day in June of 1980 when I came home from work. We were going to go celebrate my husband passing the CPA and getting a huge promotion. Everything was looking great and perfect. And I found him sitting in our backyard in a pile of dirt, rocking back and forth, caressing his knees, sobbing, and totally incoherent. He couldn't speak. I had never even seen my husband cry in those 12 years. Only happy tears when our baby girls were born. And a few hours later, in the emergency room, I learned some new words that this author had never heard, like depression, non-responsiveness, and SMI, which means serious mental illness, as they carted him off to the psych center.
Wow.
I was blindsided, terrified. And I think for the first time in my life, I never felt so completely alone. And this was in 1980, back in 1980. And, you know, I've navigated a lot of Florida hurricanes, but I had no idea, no preparation for how I was going to navigate the next 17 years of the storms that we went through.
Wow. And so what did you do at that point?
At that point, I relied on my resilience that I did learn from both of my parents. I learned a lot of resilience, but I had nothing to help me. Back then, as you know, Jack, there was no internet, no public awareness of mental illness. Right. There was no podcast. There was no celebrities on TV helping you understand it. Nothing. There weren't even books. Your 2 books on Chicken Soup for the Soul for caregivers didn't come out till 2012.
Right.
32 years after that fateful day, they would have really helped me at least get through some really bad days. But I actually became both the caregiver, like my mom, and the business person, like my dad, to take care of 3 children by that time. We had a son that came along and just got through it. But after about almost a dozen years of just getting through each day the best I could, not knowing what was ahead of me, I finally hit a breaking point at that point. So that's what my book talks about. And I made a lot of mistakes because I had no resources,
Mm-hmm.
nothing to help me figure this out, even from the medical community. Even from the medical community, I got very little help. And because my husband wouldn't talk about whatever his trauma was, he refused to talk about it, and the therapist allowed him to just take medication. I never really learned what it was.
Yeah, they were masking the symptoms, not dealing with the source problem. Yeah,
But it must have been something truly traumatic.
for sure. Yeah. Fortunately, today we're more aware of trauma, and there's now trauma therapy and things are having to do. People weren't aware of that back then.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And you know, in the 50 years since I had my teenage dream of actually becoming an author, a lot has changed for the better. You know, we now have a lot of awareness of it. However, people who were reading my first drafts of my manuscript, every one of them said, well, I know somebody in my family or my church or at work that either is a caregiver of someone going through trauma, could be physical trauma or mental trauma or PTSD, or every one of them told me that. So I have a suspicion that I haven't yet gotten the data together to prove that even though there's more awareness now, I suspect that things are getting even worse partly because of COVID and partly because of cyberbullying that's going on, especially among younger people. So I want to kind of investigate that. My left brain loves to do research, and I want to find out if there's truth in that. Is it really more prevalent, as I suspect, than it was even back in the
I
80s
think
and
not
90s?
only is it more prevalent, I think we're more aware of it than we ever were. Where it was just people didn't talk about it or didn't understand it. And yeah, and I think you're right. COVID definitely created a lot of trauma for people being isolated, being alone, the kids not in school, social
Yeah.
skills not being learned, the bullying that's taking place.
Well, perhaps I didn't actually get around to writing my book until about 2 years ago when you came into my life, incidentally. Maybe it was because I needed to get my story in me so that when we had a different world where information could get out and things were getting worse, that I would be writing it at the right time. So when I actually started to do this, I said, okay, it's been 50 years since I had a teenage dream. I need some help. And you showed up in my life. You literally showed up in my life. And I was on a Zoom call with you 2 years ago and Steve Harrison's group. And I asked you, I said, Jack, I think I can write a book in 2 months. And you said, I think it's going to take a little longer than that for you to write your book, but tell me what it's about. And I thought it was about a deferred dream. But the people who were reading my book said, I don't care about your dream. How did you get through 17 years of adversity taking care of your husband in the
Mhm.
80s and 90s? So I decided that's what I needed to write about.
So you said there's been some readers that have read first drafts
Yes.
and stuff. What, in addition to them saying, I know people
Yes.
like this, what are they telling you about the book itself?
They're telling you I got to read the book. That everybody that I've said, they say, what do you do? Well, as someone whose dream was on hold for all these years and I didn't get to live my dream, I help other people find that place inside of them where they can learn to live their dream despite whatever adversity they're in. They said, well, tell me what you do. And I tell them about my book and they say, I got to read your book. So that's what said, okay, maybe I'm on the right trail. Maybe that's the story I was born to tell.
This wasn't the book you were thinking about at the age of 50.
No, I was going to talk about all of the dreams I had. No, that was the one that people said, tell me about. And I started to call my book Unbreakable Resilience, but actually I did break at one point. And when I got to the end of it, I said, this is just, I love that man. He loved me, but there's some things you can't fix. Some things there's no cure for.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to find your way in that. And I did. I had an unlikely hero that showed up finally to make things better. Not perfect. They never got perfect, but it made things better. So that's what my book's about. And my hope is that caregivers who are unsung heroes, whatever your caregiver situation is, whether it's mental illness, just a single parent taking care of kids, by themselves due to divorce, whether it's dealing with a family member who still has PTSD after coming back from serving overseas, that these are unsung heroes that they don't write many books about.
Right.
There still aren't many books for caregivers. There's more for the mental illness part,
Right.
but I have come across some. And so as my book finally gets published here in a few months, I want to put in my website not only information about the upcoming date, but I want to put resources
Yes.
and maybe even do a roadmap of things that you can do now that will be helpful. And I want to find out, just what I can do to help people nowadays. And in the course of getting some coaches to help me write the book for today's market with short attention spans, and they're tied to this addiction they hold in their hand all the time.
Right.
I didn't know how to market because all I had was books and I needed to learn about marketing. Well, they helped me do that. Well, as I started hearing from people, I said, these people need more help than my book. I can actually talk to them, and they know that I can resonate with what they're going through because I lived
Right.
through it. And I said, okay, I got to have a coach now. So that's when Mary Morrissey came into my life, right when I said I need a life coach. And now I'm a dream builder coach and a life mastery consultant. And I never imagined that I would be doing that. But I think the extra little thing that I can add to, there's so many great coaches out there, is I've been through it.
Yes.
I lived through it. I resonate, I know, and when they read my book, they're going to see what I dealt with every day.
Right.
And I don't have great advice. I'm not a medical professional. This is what my life was like until I found a way to actually look back on it and say, trials can become triumph. Hurt can become healing. Pain can become purpose. But it took me a long time to get to that point.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll shorten that journey for a lot of people when they read your book.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's my hope. But I'm so thankful for the coaches. And when I get back home next week, I have a speaker coach named Forbes Riley, and she said to say hello to you. And I said, I wish I had finished it in time for Jack to actually endorse my book. That would have been great. But she says, well, ask him anyway. Maybe he'll be interested enough to read it while he goes off into retirement. But I'm going to go learn how to speak from a stage.
Well, I see you as a speaker.
Yes.
And I think more and more there are these women's conferences and women's summits online. And there are people, and you could be doing your own podcast, being on other people's podcasts. It's a huge need out there. And you have a story to tell that's very helpful. And you've got through it. So it gives people the hope that there is this other side you can get to. And you're like a guide in Africa that says, okay, I've been here. Here's where the quicksand is. Here's how to avoid that. Here's what to do when you see a rhinoceros,
There you go.
So it's very good. So do you have a website yet?
I do. I have a brand new website, and my folks who are watching can reach me at KL, middle initial L Harris. There's a lot of people that are authors with the common name of K Harris, so you have to put that L in there. Let's say it stands for Living the Life You Love. Let's call it that. If they just go to klharris.com, they will find out the publication date. I'm going to have resources out there for people. I'm going to have a roadmap out there very, very soon.
Yeah.
They'll also find out, though, that they can get a complimentary strategy session with me. If they just want to talk about what they've been through, that's great. Or if they're at the point where, they're ready to get to the edge of their fear and actually take that leap off and need a coach, I'd be honored to do that.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and congratulations on finishing. I know how hard it is to finish a book.
Oh, it's harder than trying to get a PhD, I'll tell you. I did that, but that didn't teach me how to write a book.
Yeah, no, it's different. It's different. Well, thank you much. And make sure to check out her website.
Absolutely.
As you heard, so many people are struggling with these issues. And if you are, or you know someone who is, make sure you give this resource to them. And thank you for joining us today. And I look forward to having you join us when we do this again. Success today. See you next time.